What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of our review of season 1 of The Wheel of Time. My name is Chip.
I'm Brittany.
And, if this is your first time here, once again, I encourage you to go listen to our other episodes. But to catch you up, this is not an initial review of the show. We've already seen it a couple times, and now we're rewatching and giving you our thoughts as we watch each episode. Also, I have read the books many times. Brittany has not read the books yet.
I'm a, quote, non-book reader, as we say in the biz.
We're going to jump right into this with the cold open of episode 4. What did you think of this one?
So in this cold open, we meet Logain. What I have to say about this cold open is that we finally get to see a different version of wielding the power. So like when Moiraine and the Aes Sedai wield power, it's like white. It's like this white silvery color. And when someone who is like a man is wielding the power, at least to me, it comes off tainted. So it's like black. And that was really interesting to see. Also, you see that he is going insane, that he has voices talking to him. You see what the madness kind of can look like, which was interesting. In his mind, he believes that he is here to save the world, that his power is so big that he's here and he starts to, basically, he's converting people to his side.
From the book reader's perspective, I think it was freaking amazing. You only get to see Logain after he's got captured in the book, so it's really cool to see him, wreaking havoc in Gildon like they said he was. I mean, I really love the way they're portraying the taint, as you said. The blackness that comes over the power as they wield it is great. How they showed the images and his, the people talking to him behind his back with that taint. I mean, everything about it was freaking amazing. I was loving it from the first minute. And I think it shows that Logain really does believe he's the Dragon Reborn.
But he's also mad. But
he's also going crazy. If you've read the book, you know who Logain is and what he becomes and all that. So it's cool to see this side of the story that we never really get to see portrayed in the books. So I think it was a strong cold open. This would probably be my favorite one so far. This one beats out the white cloaks from episode 2 just because of all those things I mentioned. It was just cool to finally see it come to life.
Now that we're rewatching, I definitely see how the cold opens connect how the season's gonna go. So with that opening in the beginning, when you meet the Red Aja, which is the first cold open from the first episode, that is all sort of connected throughout the seasons. And so I really enjoyed some of that, which we'll go over in the episode. I have to say really quick before we move on from this cold open, the actor, and I will say all of these side characters, the actors that are playing these side characters are just amazing. And I think Logain is one of those characters for me that just brings it from his actions, his facial expressions. I mean, he really, really claimed that role and took it. And I have heard through the grapevine that he will be back in later seasons. So I'm not sure about where he comes in the book, but I have heard that through the grapevine.
It's not exactly what I pictured Logain to look like from the description of the book, but it's like every other character. I can't imagine anybody else.
I can't imagine it like that.
Yeah, so it was awesome. Great start. Very strong opening for that episode. Moving on to the actual rest of the episode. Again, it's the same kind of thing. We have our different groups on the run, so we're going to talk about each group individually, and we'll start like we did last episode with the least exciting group, and that was Rand, Thom, and Mat. It's not that there was an unexciting scene for them. It was just they had a lot last episode. We're working on the other people now. So it wasn't as much there. They find a farm and, ask to work for some lodging. And there's a lot of dynamics there, with Mat slowly succumbing to this darkness, them trying to feel out Thom. Rand doesn't know what's going on with Mat, but he knows something's going on. And I just, I really liked it. I think, all of the reservations I had about Thom from last episode are now gone. He's a great Thom. And I think moving forward, we're going to get a lot more from him, hopefully, if he comes back. I mean, his exit in that episode didn't go too well, but I thought Mat's acting was great. It just makes me sad that he's gone because him dealing with the darkness was top-notch. The way that whole section of the show worked out, I thought was pretty good. What did you think?
I have to say, I really did actually like their story in this particular episode. So the family that comes is like a normal family, right? They are non-violent. They don't want to be violent. They are fleeing from these wars, and everything's happening throughout the world, and you kind of get more world building as like people are going through it in this country and in this area, and they are struggling. And so this family sort of says, you can stay in our barn, just clean it out, like very nice, but they're definitely worried, but they're so nice. They give them bread and they're there for them. Matt's still going through it. He's still dealing with something evil. And Thom tells Rand about his nephew. And I think that was really, really, really good story building as far as what it means to be gentled. A lot of this episode was what happens to a man who can channel. And so I really loved the story of Thom's nephew and him saying, my nephew could move a rock without touching it, so he had this power, the one power. And the Red Aja, or Aes Sedai, came, they gentled him. Then he killed himself. It was a really good story to kind of say men can channel and it's not good and it can drive them mad. There's also this negative part of it, which is that it's kind of like a two-sided monster. Like, what do you do with this particular situation? And it kind of gives you more insight as to why people are very wary of the Aes Sedai, and also just the idea of like what happens with these men who can channel. They're all gentled, and I don't know. What do you think?
I think, all that explanation about the power and how, with men and Thom's background, I think is great. It's something that's really, you don't really find out till later in the books. And, that whole scene in general is kind of like last episode where they take a bunch of different scenes from the book and boil it down into one. So it did ring true to me as a book reader. It fit in nicely with what I would have imagined their journey would have been like as they were traveling by themselves. And, again, Thom coming through at the end of that scene, or at the end of their time, saving the day, fighting the Murdrawl or the Fade, was amazing, and the way the Fade used the shadow to come from the top floor to the first floor, I thought was a really cool touch, again, for people who know what to look for. But I just think overall, it was great world building, and it was done in a way that it didn't need to be. It wasn't overly long. You know what I mean? They got to it. It was obviously the smallest part of the episode is their time in that little barn area.
But I think a lot.
But they got
covered.
a lot done.
Yeah,
they got a lot done in that small amount of time. So it was pretty good. I thought. It brought a lot to both of those characters, and I'm excited to see what happens to them moving forward. The other group, the second group, was Egwane and Perrin with the Tinkers, which I loved every second of this. This is exactly what I pictured it like from the books. All the characters are amazing. Aram is perfect. Rain and Isla are perfect, and the way they describe the Way of the Leaf is amazing. Like, literally, I could not say anything better about, from a book reader's perspective, I could not say anything better about this whole sequence with the Tinkers. What do you think?
I want to just say again that the characters that are playing these non-main characters are just incredible, and they really move this story along for the cast. And the boy who plays Aram is like literally amazing. His grandmother, who is Isla, is fantastic. It's the first time you kind of see Perrin smile, other than like for one tiny moment in the beginning, or when he's with the boys. Sometimes he'll talk, but this was like a real smile. There's fun happening, and he's learning slowly about this non-violence and how even though he has picked up the axe before, it doesn't mean you can't change for the future, and leaving that legacy to your children, even if you're not going to be able to experience it. And it is really powerful, and it's really a wonderful scene. And I think what Perrin sort of needed to sort of work through his issues. Now, I don't know because I'm not a book reader, I don't really know what happens to Perrin, but I know as a non-book reader, I'm watching this person really struggle. And so I really liked this moment where you get to see Isla help Perrin understand that things do happen. You can be a certain person, but you can change, and that nonviolence is a great way to go. And so I really enjoyed it for Perrin. And I really loved how the group is looking for this song. There's the idea of this song that's supposed to when people hear it, they become nonviolent. And she's like, I think you've already found it. And I love that little line because I do think that music is one of those things that can really help people. And it is kind of just a fun, beautiful thing in life. So I kind of liked that. That's not really part of the show, but I kind of like loved that.
Yeah, I mean, that scene, like I said, everything about those scenes with the Tinkers I thought was perfect. And it's cool to me, too, because watching you watch it, where I know you don't really know Perrin's whole story, you know, that it justifies the changes they made in episode 1 where he has a wife and he kills his wife. Like, a lot of people were upset about that. But now for people who haven't read the book, they understand why he's struggling with violence. Like, and again, in the book, it's just kind of an internal thing that he has going on without at least any justification like what we have in the show. And I think that makes it really cool that, you know, non-book readers can get that and pick it up. And, you know, we can all understand why Perrin is the way he is. But, you know, like I said, that whole part of the show, I think they knocked it out of the park. But the big chunk of this episode takes place at the Aes Sedai Camp with Lan, Nynaeve, Moiraine, and all the Aes Sedai that are there. I first got to say that adding Karene and her warder, Steppen, was a cool little touch for those people who've read the books. If you've read the prequel book, New Spring, you know that they're in there. You also know that they die, so it's kind of like you already kind of knew that either they were going to die this episode or she was going to die this episode or something. But, you know, I thought that was a cool little plug for people who haven't read the book. But this, again, this whole scene, everything about every aspect of this, interactions between the Ajahs with the warders, it was pure fan service for me. I loved the scene with the warders around the campfire. It made them seem way more human than they ever do in the book. You know, they're all just hanging out, having a good time, drinking, you know, swapping stories. Like, that to me did more for character development of the warders than most anything in the book. I mean, most in the book, they're just like these quiet, hey, we're good with swords. Like, that's it. So I loved that. I loved the explanation of the Ajahs, learning from Alana about the Greens and Leandrin trying to recruit Nynaeve to the Reds. Thought that was great. But really, for me, the best part of this whole sequence was just the exploration of the relationship between Warder and Aes Sedai. Like, again, you could tell that the people that are making this understand the book and they understand the story and they're trying to be as close to honoring that as they can while making changes that are necessary for the medium that they're doing it in. So I just love that. They explained it a couple times. They show it a couple times between not only Moiraine and Lan, but also all the other Aes Sedais and their warders and how the different relationships are. I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on a lot of those things. I think we should open up with what happens sort of in this introduction and how everything's going. So, as you know from the last episode, Moiraine is sick. She has this Trolloc wound, and it is getting worse. Nynaeve was able to help her for as long as she could, but she needed additional help. And so it kind of opens up with Moiraine getting cured, and we meet Karene, who is this green Ajah who is kind of has this ability as an actress to be sort of tough, but also like nice. And you can tell that she is kind of loved and admired and respected by all the other Ajahs, or the other sisters, excuse me. And you get that sort of immediately. And then we go into Karene with her warder and meeting those two together and seeing the kind of like, I mean, the actor just like the respect he had for his, you know, for Karene and kind of love he had for her. It was such a wonderful like acting ability that he had to really show that in such a small amount of time. Also, you get a little bit more of Lan's emotion, him and Nynaeve. They have that moment. But one of my favorite parts, I mean, there's so many good parts in this, but so Lan is praying, Nynaeve comes over and she kisses her fingers and she touches the ground and she says something in an old tongue, and Lan says, how did you know the old tongue? And she said, well, it's the only thing I know. My parents said it to me before they died, when they hid me. And it says, we shall go into the land so our children can always hold us and will not be alone. And what I love about that is the old tongue was the Manetherin. It's a common theme, I think, throughout the show is that they have this.
She has some connection to
She has
them.
some connection, at least. And so we're kind of seeing that. I love when she says, Lan, you're different than what I thought you were. I thought you were a lapdog with 2 legs. That was really cute kind of moments between Lan and Nynaeve, which are kind of fun. But I think we have to go back to Logain, who is being held, his power is being held by multiple sisters. So he is pretty powerful. He's a powerful man. So Moraine finally meeting him one-on-one. He tells her, like, the voices are telling me that I am so powerful. They're going to help me. I will not be like any other former dragon and all of these things. And she's like, you are but a fleeting light to the sun compared to what the real dragon reborn his power will be. And basically those whispers mean that you're mad and you're going insane. And so because during the episode, Moraine is really feeling like, is this the guy? Like, he's super powerful. Like, this could be it. And she meets him and she's like, okay, like, I'm not wrong. Like, this is not the guy. So they're able to hold him down. He breaks free and kills Karene. That sends the warder off. He goes crazy and he tries to attack Logain, which breaks the Aes Sedai power that is holding him down, and it causes chaos, and everybody gets like almost basically killed. And Nynaeve has a shot of power because she's upset, she's mad, she doesn't have her friends, she's losing Lan, and she's, all of these things happening all at once, and she has basically a force of power. But one of the other things I want to talk about was the politics of the Aes Sedai. Can you speak to that, Chip?
Yeah, so again, everything you mentioned I think was great. One of my favorite things is the conflict between Leandrin and the other Aes Sedai. It shows how, the Reds, as she mentions, are in charge of finding these men and gentling them, and she doesn't think that they should have to take them back to the White Tower to answer to the Amaryllis seat. She's like, let's just do it here. And she's obviously trying to get all the other sisters in the camp on board, and they're all kind of infighting. And that really is what it's like in the books. They are one group, the Aes Sedai, but there's 7 different factions, and they all are constantly fighting within each other to be the most prominent, to be the best, or whatever it is. And this was just a good illustration of that. I also really liked how they showed and talked about shielding and how that works, and how the visualization of it, I really loved that. I thought that was, a really good way to show it.
The gentling.
And then the gentling at the end was sick as well. It just, it looked like everything was being ripped away from them, and I loved that. Just everything that they've done, trying to visualize the power, I think
we can't forget about
great.
The battle.
And all of this is preceded by one of the best scenes, I think, of the show so far, and that is when the Dragonsworn army that followed Logain and Gildon tries to break him out from the Aes Sedai prison, and the fight scene that follows is honestly one of the best things I've ever seen, like, on a TV show. Watching them use the power to fight off these people, the warders protecting their Aes Sedai, was freaking amazing, and I cannot wait for more battles down the line, really.
And I loved the idea of them being pretty close up on the characters as this battle is going on. And it's interesting. I love that Nynaeve is just like, I have no idea what to do. And she's kind of like, she gets a few kills. She does use her knife, and she is a strong person. But again, it goes back to my love of Nynaeve for being sort of so confident, yet so kind of, scared and insecure, and also being so tough as nails. And I just love her for that. She really carries that so well.
Yeah, and Alana, who we know from the books is a badass, getting to see her in action was amazing. That scene where she basically blows up the mountain to kill everybody, I was like, I have goosebumps just thinking about it. But you've already touched on it. The best scene of that episode, by far, was Nynaeve finally touching her power, and everybody being like, holy shit, this person is powerful.
She cures everybody. She's able to push Logain back, and it's a great scene. I have to say, when Karene dies, I did definitely tear up, especially the second time. I think the first time I watched it, there's a lot going on, but the second time I was like, able to like understand how these characters are connected. And it did kind of make me tear up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like definitely had goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, there's really nothing like this in the book, but it is understood that Nynaeve is, one of the most powerful channelers alive, and they learn that pretty early from the Aes Sedai perspective in the books once they actually get to know her. But to see it put on screen like this to show this is why she's so powerful. I'm sure people out there who read the books were not hyped with this scene or whatever, but for me, I thought it was so cool, man. It just, her hair was standing up on edge. She's screaming because, as you know, if you've read the books, she can't really channel unless she's mad. That touch, and showing her really freak out in an explosion of power, it heals everybody. Even Logain is shocked by it. But you could not have had a better ending. Like, literally the end of that episode, if we didn't have to come up here to record this episode, I would have been like, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
And one of the things I do actually, now that we're thinking back to it, there is this moment where Rand and Matt are talking, and Matt's like, look, Moraine said that there's 5 of us, but we only have 4. We only have Egwene, Matt, Rand, and Perrin. Who's this 5th person? Because remember, they still believe that Nynaeve is gone. And I love how the ending is like, that's your 5th person. This girl belongs with this group of 5. And we really figure that out because she's not necessarily the age bracket. In this production, she is. And they all matter. And I really loved that ending, which was like, this girl is part of this 5, and that's what it is. And I really like that they sort of questioned that a little bit.
Yeah, and to speak to that, one of the criticisms that I see a lot from the book reading community is that Nynaeve and Egwene are never really mentioned as ta'veren, and they're never really mentioned as somebody who could potentially be the dragon, obviously, but they are integral to the story, and a lot of the stuff that happens to them I think would fit in the category of a ta'veren if you go back and like reread it. A lot of the things that happen to them could only happen to somebody who is important. I think it's a smart change for the show to put emphasis on these women as well, so that it's not just a trio, just these 3 guys. Oh, and then there's also 2 girls that are kind of important. Like, just make them all important because they are. They are all integral to the story. They're pivotal characters.
It connects them in a different way,
right,
which I like.
And to make it makes it more accessible for people who are watching the show too. Like, it would be confusing if it was like, well, these 3 are ta'veren, but these 2 are also important in a different way. We don't really know, like, it would just be too confusing. So anybody that's complaining about that from the book side, I understand your complaint, but I disagree respectfully. But yeah, other than that, I would have to give this episode a strong, I would say an 8.1. This is my favorite episode so far, I think, just because of all the world building and the fan service in terms of backstory with the Aes Sedai and the warders and all that stuff. I thought it was great. So I'm giving it an 8.1. What do you say?
I would say definitely like a solid 8 to an 8.5. It's fantastic. And I really liked it. And I'm excited to go through the next one with you.
Yeah, it's definitely what they needed to do for episode 4. They made people wait a week for this one. It's going to keep people coming back. Like, it was a great way to come out swinging with the weekly installments with that one. I thought was great. So we'll go down, we'll watch episode 5, and we'll be back with another episode soon. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our other videos, and we will catch you on the next one.
See you later.